Welcome to the Markets Talk podcast, where we help you make sense of West Africa's investment world. This podcast is brought to you by Daba, your most comprehensive platform for investing in African stocks, bonds, and managed funds. You can download the Daba app on your favorite Google and Apple app stores. Today, we look back at the week of April 27th to 30. It was a shorter week than usual because of the May 1st public holiday, but it was still packed with important signals for investors. And the main message is simple. Market indexes rose, several companies published solid results, dividends continued to attract attention, and the bond market confirmed its role as a key destination for investors looking for steady income. Let's start with the indexes. The BRVM composite, which gives a broad view of the market, rose by 0.33% to close at 403.93 points. The BRVM 30 did even better, gaining 0.53% to finish at 190.82 points. The BRVM Prestige edged up by 0.03% to 158.27 points, and the BRVM Principal gained 0.26% to close at 280.2 points. What does that mean for you? It means the market remains on a positive path. It is not rising aggressively, but it is moving forward steadily. And in investing, a steady rise can sometimes be healthier than a sudden jump. But be careful. Rising indexes do not mean the whole market is euphoric. Trading volumes fell sharply. The number of securities traded dropped to 2,337,137 shares, compared with more than 8,000 the previous week. That represents a decline of 70.83%. The total value traded also fell to 5.5333 billion francs CFA, compared with 9.3788 billion francs CFA the previous week. Why did trading activity fall so much? Mainly because the week was shorter. Fewer trading sessions often mean fewer orders, lower volumes, and sometimes fewer market movements. But the fact that indexes still rose shows that buyers remained present. Among the most actively traded stocks, Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire once again stood out as the most traded stock of the week. The stock recorded transaction volume of 1.444 billion francs CFA, representing 26.10% of total market turnover. This matters because a heavily traded stock is usually more liquid. In simple terms, that means it is easier to buy or sell without moving the price too much. For investors, liquidity is essential, especially when investing larger amounts. Sonatel Senegal and BOA Côte d'Ivoire also help drive trading activity. These two stocks remain closely watched by investors because they belong to two major sectors, telecommunications and banking. Now, let's move to the top-performing stocks of the week. The standout performer was SODECI. The stock jumped by 24.93% to close at 8,095 francs CFA. This strong move came after the company published solid annual results. SODECI reported net profit after tax of 4.663 billion francs CFA as of December 31, 2025, up 31% from 2024. For investors, that is an important signal. When a company publishes sharply higher earnings, the market can react quickly, especially if the stock had been undervalued or overlooked. It is a reminder of a simple rule. Financial results remain one of the strongest drivers of stock prices. NEI-CEDA Côte d'Ivoire came next, gaining 20.25% to reach 1,900 francs CFA. Since the beginning of the year, the stock has posted an impressive gain of 58.33%. This shows that a stock can remain quiet for a long time, then suddenly move when investors rediscover its potential. But the faster a stock rises, the more discipline investors need. You have to look at earnings, valuation, outlook, and risk. You should never buy only because the price is rising. CIE Côte d'Ivoire completed the top three, with a gain of 8.33% to 3,250 francs CFA. Overall, the week ended with 22 stocks rising, 19 falling, and 6 unchanged. That gives us a market slightly dominated by buyers, but still balanced. This is not a market where everything is rising without distinction. It is a market where stock selection matters. On the downside, SAFCA Côte d'Ivoire recorded the sharpest correction of the week, falling by 13.53% to 3,010 francs CFA. This decline remained linked to the impact of the preferential subscription right detachment that took place the previous week. Servair Abidjan Côte d'Ivoire fell by 12.04% to 3,215 francs CFA. CFAO Côte d'Ivoire declined by 10.34% to 1,430 francs CFA. Here, there is an important lesson. Not all declines mean the same thing. A stock can fall because of disappointing earnings, It can fall because of a technical event. It can also fall after a strong previous rally. The investor who understands the reason behind the move makes better decisions than the investor who only looks at the percentage change. Now let's talk about dividends, because this is one of the biggest themes on the BRVM right now. The 2026 dividend season continues to move forward. According to the latest recap, 25 companies out of 47 have already announced a dividend payment or a dividend proposal. The average yield stands at 5.38%. Several names stand out. BOA Burkina Faso proposed a dividend of 397 francs CFA, with a yield of about 7.03%. BOA Côte d'Ivoire proposed 594.528 francs CFA, with a yield of 6.47%. Sonatel Senegal proposed 1,340 francs CFA, equal to a yield of 6.06%. Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire proposed 2,093.28 francs CFA, for a yield of 6.63%. SAPH proposed 430.32 francs CFA, for a yield of 6.33%. SOGB proposed 501.6 francs CFA, with a yield of around 7.06%. For investors, the dividend matters because it represents a portion of profit paid back to shareholders. It is like receiving income while you hold your shares. But investors must be careful. A good dividend must be sustainable. You need to look at whether the company earns enough money to keep paying in the future. To see the full dividend calendar, payment dates, ex-dividend dates, and the companies paying or not paying this year, download the Daba app. It is the easiest way to follow dividend season without missing important dates. Several company news items also shaped the week. BOA Niger drew attention. After a difficult 2025 marked by major provisions, the bank is now showing signs of recovery. Its net profit for Q1 2026 rose by 29% to 1.47 billion francs CFA. Costs declined and operating efficiency improved. For investors, the message is clear. There is no dividend this year, but the market is already looking at the earnings recovery. Ecobank Côte d'Ivoire also published interesting numbers. Net banking income rose by 3.7%, supported by interest margins. But net profit slipped by 1.6% to 13 billion francs CFA because of a significant increase in the cost of risk. In simple terms, the bank generated more revenue, but it also set aside more money to cover possible loan repayment problems. This is a signal to watch. When banks increase provisions, it can show prudence, but it can also indicate that parts of the loan portfolio are becoming riskier. Ecobank Group, meanwhile, reported record quarterly revenue. The Pan-African Group saw revenue rise, deposits increase, and digital transactions grow strongly. This confirms a major trend across Africa. Banking is becoming more digital, and groups that can serve clients at scale can improve profitability. In the agro-industrial sector, SAPH and Palm Côte d'Ivoire had a more difficult first quarter. SAPH was affected by congestion at the port of San Pedro and weaker rubber prices. Palm Côte d'Ivoire saw profits fall, but the company explained that finished goods inventory will be sold gradually, especially into export markets. The key point here is that some profit declines can come from temporary timing, logistics, or pricing issues, not necessarily from a structural collapse in the business. For WAEMU, several trends stand out. Banks remain cautious on credit, but many continue to attract deposits. This shows that clients still trust financial institutions, even in a regional environment that can be complex. Export-focused companies also need to adapt to new international requirements such as European rules on deforestation, which affect products like rubber and palm oil. For companies able to invest in traceability, this can become a competitive advantage. Now let's move to bonds. The bond market continued to grow. The market capitalization of the bond segment rose by 1.113% to reach 12,147.2 billion francs CFA, compared with 12,011 billion francs CFA the previous week. Trading activity reached 121 securities exchanged for a total value of 446,655,316 francs CFA. The Senegal sovereign bond with a 6.75% coupon and maturity in 2032 dominated trading. It recorded 19,130 securities traded, for a value of 187,474,000 francs CFA. This single bond represented 18.08% of total bond trading volume and 41.97% of total bond trading value. Why does this matter? because sovereign bonds remain highly sought after by investors looking for more predictable income. A bond is like lending money to a government or a company in exchange for regular interest. For more cautious investors, or for those who want to balance a stock portfolio, bonds can play an important role. Among bond opportunities monitored for the week ahead, several profiles look interesting, including sovereign and similar bonds with attractive yields to maturity. For example, some 8-year TPCI bonds, 10-year TPCI bonds, and 5-year State of Senegal bonds offer yields that may interest investors looking for regular income. But as always, yield should never be viewed alone. Investors must also analyze maturity, liquidity, issuer quality, and purchase price. For the week ahead, opportunities exist, but they require selection. Without naming the specific stocks reserved for Daba Pro subscribers, the data shows that certain financial stocks, infrastructure-linked companies, and large-cap names continue to offer interesting potential. We also see that some stocks have already risen sharply, while others are showing caution signals. This is exactly the kind of market where investors should avoid improvising. That is where Daba Pro becomes useful. With Daba Pro, you get weekly recommendations, detailed stock analysis, exclusive data, lower investment fees, and tools to better understand opportunities before making a decision. With Daba Pro, you do not just follow the markets, you stay ahead of them. And if you want to learn how to invest before choosing stocks, also think about Daba Academy. Daba Academy helps you understand the stock market, bonds, dividends, risk, wealth building, and the basics of investing in Francophone Africa. There is currently a special promotion. With the code PODCAST, you get a 3,000 XOF discount on your Daba Academy registration. To summarize the week, BRVM indexes rose, buyers were slightly in control, SODECI, NEI-CEDA Côte d'Ivoire, and CIE Côte d'Ivoire led the gains, dividends continued to offer attractive yields, and the bond market confirmed its central role in cautious portfolios. Next week, watch 3 things. First, confirmation of dividends and payment dates. Second, the market reaction to Q1 results. Third, trading volumes. Because a market rise supported by strong volume is often more convincing than a rise in a quiet market. This was your weekly recap with Markets Talk, the Daba Finance podcast. Download the Daba app to follow stocks, bonds, dividends, and investment opportunities in Africa. Subscribe to Daba Pro to access weekly recommendations. And use the code PODCAST to get a 3,000 XOF discount on your Daba Academy registration. Stay curious, stay disciplined, and above all, stay invested.